We'll take you to the Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, who's briefing the media in Pretoria this morning on the recent developments following Cabinet's approval of the groundbreaking approach to financing transmission infrastructure and the implementation of the National Energy Action Plan. Let's take you live there now.
I must say that we have a significant milestone. The first one is the fact that Eskom, together with the board, together with the Department of Public Enterprises and with the concurrence of Cabinet, has finally made an appointment of the Group CEO of Eskom, Mr. Dan Marokani, and we really welcome the appointment. I've been making the point that I think leadership stability is key to the resolution of the energy crisis that is confronting us. So we're looking forward to Mr. Marokani's contribution, together with the totality of the executive committee of Eskom, to ensure that he gives additional impetus on the work that we are doing. And also just to say Mr. Kasim has been exceptionally helpful as an interim or acting CEO of Eskom. Of course, a lot of this detail will be shared with you by the DPE and also the Eskom board. But I think for purposes of the work that we are doing, I think we do welcome the fact that at the Apex office at Eskom now we have an appointment for the next 5 years, which is most welcome, augurs well for the work that we are doing. Certainty is key in the resolution of a crisis of this magnitude. And when you have a situation where you have people in an acting capacity, sometimes they are very averse to make thoroughgoing decisions, but we do welcome this appointment. And of course, as per communication by Minister Godan and also the Eskom board, is someone who's cut his teeth. Eskom has got great knowledge of the institution, has served in a number of roles at Eskom. So he's going to hit the ground running, because the learning curve is very steep. But for someone who has been in the trenches, I think familiarity is going to help. So we're looking forward to working with the CEO. And then the second major event is that the Integrated Resource Plan 2023 has been approved by Cabinet. Now it will be out for public comment. So just for the benefit of the viewers at home, the IRP really is a government policy articulation in relation to the various sources of energy, if you like, the energy mix. So it tries to first project what the future demand is, and then it then responds by saying these are the fuel sources that are going to support that demand. And thirdly, it does some degree of computation in relation to what are the cost implications. So that the IRP will be out. Minister Mantashe will be taking it out. The Cabinet has approved it, so it's an update on the IRP 2023. What is significant about this, and is a detail that you'll pick up when you read the IRP 2023, it does two things. So it computes two horizons. So that's the horizon now until 2030. That is important because in the context of the energy crisis, there are interventions that are such that they are going to help us in the short term to ensure that we are able to ameliorate the degree of the energy deficit that we are experiencing now. And then it also computes horizon number 2, which is from 2030 to 2050. And in the most bold fashion, then it says what are these new sources of energy, and essentially it's issues that have to do with our ability to be able to exploit our renewable energy endowments. And of course, there are linkages to the availability of transmission. So I really do urge communities, stakeholders, and all interest groups to take a keen interest, because really we are determining our energy future. So it's important that you are able to make those contributions, and you are able to help in the formulation of the IRP 2023, because this will underpin, if you like, our responses in relation to how we are going to address the energy situation in the country. And then the third area of interest is the ruling by the North Gauteng High Court in relation to load shedding. You know that a number of parties, individuals had approached the court, and I think the primary argument there was that load shedding represents a constitutional breach of on the part of government, undermining, if you like, the constitutional rights of citizens. And they went on to identify, if you like, installations or establishment that, in their considered opinion, should be exempt from load shedding. Of course, we made the argument, and when we were in court, I think we acceded, even in our papers, that we do accept that load shedding has got adverse impact on our ability to deliver, if you like, our constitutional obligations. So that's never in doubt. We make the point, and then as part of the submission we've made was to say this is how we intend to respond to the load shedding question, to ensure that over a passage of time you have been able to resolve load shedding, and essentially you are able to deliver on that constitutional mandate. And of course, the judge has found and ruled that the Minister of Electricity must take all steps to, by no later than the 31st of January 2024, whether in conjunction with the Eskom and or any other organs of state or not, to ensure that there shall be a sufficient supply of generation of electricity to prevent the interruption of supply as a result of load shedding to institutions, and they may mention them. The first one is a public health establishment, the second one is public schools, and then the third areas of establishment is the South African police services, if you like, these police stations. So like I said, the point we want to make is that we do accept that load shedding has got that implication, and I think what we intend to do really is not to mount an argument on the issues around our obligation as a state to ensure that we are able to provide uninterrupted quality supply of electricity. The state can abrogate that responsibility. The state can be retrenched from that space. The state has a duty to perform that function, so that we do accept. And really the issues is around what does the 31st of January mean? Do we mean that by the 31st of January you come with a comprehensive plan that is convincing to the judge and the other parties that indeed we are on track to ensure that we are able to provide this uninterrupted supply to this school, to this establishment, or it means that by that time you must ensure that come the 1st of February, these installations are not load shed. Of course, there are legal intricacies there, but I think the principal point I want to make and the assurance I want to give to the South African public, we have no intention of abrogating our responsibility. We have no intention of making an argument that seeks to suggest that we don't carry a constitutional obligation to ensure that, amongst others, these establishments get the uninterrupted power supply, and in fact there is no load shedding. Of course, in the long term, our ability to avoid this kind of conversation and this degree of litigation is to ultimately resolve load shedding. And I think the parties went before the court out of genuine desperation and care for, if you like, life and limb, the future of young people and posterity, and they really wanted the court to come into the mix and say that the state has got that obligation and it must be compelled. And I really want to say that even outside the court judgment, we have every intention to ensure that we are able to resolve the issues of load shedding and ensure that we are able to protect the South African economy, we are able to enhance the quality of life, we are able to ensure that there's growth, there's investment in the country. I thought I must put that out there. Of course, there are legal intricacies. We'll receive a legal advice on what is the best approach. But I want to assure everyone that we will not abrogate that responsibility, and we have not shied away that load shedding represents that essentially undermining people's constitutional rights. So that we do accept. And then the fourth one is that Koeberg unit number 2 is going off tomorrow. You remember that unit number 1 is come back after significant delays. It was meant to, remember, we took it out of commission as part of the licensing requirements, just for the benefit of everyone at home. Koeberg is our only nuclear power station, the only one on the continent. 980 megawatt each unit, very significant in the totality of the energy mix. And as part of our intention to extend the life by 20 years, we needed to do certain actions. So we took out unit number 1 to comply with the requirements of the regulator. We took it out December of last year. We were meant to return it by June of this year. We delayed and only returned it about a month ago. Now we're taking out unit 2 for the same purpose, and I was saying to the team that we have learned and unlearned from the mistakes, the shortcomings in relation to unit 1. So really we urge them that we must keep to the timelines of returning unit 2. So what it means is that we're taking out 980 megawatts by tomorrow, and of course unit 1 is almost at full load. And then the Kusile Unit 5, of course, we are still on track December to ensure that it returns. We bring it back, and of course we will continue to give you that update of Kusile Unit number 5. Having said all of that, I really want to take you through what has been the performance of the grid over the past week. A number of significant observations. The first one on the positive side is that our unplanned capacity loss factor and the partial load losses put together. So by this I mean the rate at which the units are failing, the unreliability of these units, and also the units not performing at the optimal capacity, so the efficiency being compromised. I'm talking about the partial load losses. What that does is that it removes the megawatts from the grid, and therefore the available capacity gets to be diminished. But what is positive about what has been the trend now is that we have been averaging just above 14,000 megawatts. I mean, just to put it into context, we have reached highs of about 17,000 megawatts of these losses. And if you were to use May as our baseline, we're losing about 17,369 megawatts. So essentially we're better off by about 3,000 megawatts plus, and that's what we've been averaging. And in fact, it looks even healthier if you were to take Saturday and today, we are even at about 12,000 megawatts. That's significant. So essentially is that we have been able to introduce an improvement of about 5,000 megawatts compared to what was the case, if you like, if you were to use our baseline of of May. And then what I get to be asked more often is that if you make that claim, you make that point that there's been a significant amount of megawatts as a result of the reduction in the unplanned capacity loss factor, the partial load loss. When I put all of those two together, why is it that you still are experiencing stage 3 and stage 4? And the answer is here. So what we said we will do during the summer period, if you look at the summer plan of Eskom, was that we're ramping up planned maintenance. We're sitting, as you can see there, we're just averaging just close to 7,000 megawatts. Again, let me put that into context. If you were during the winter period, I think we are averaging about 2,500 megawatts of planned maintenance. If you look at the period around May, it was 3,100 megawatts. So what this means is that the team has taken out of their own volition about 3,000 megawatts additional. compared to what was the situation in May. And in fact, if you look at, we reached a high of about 7,000 megawatts on the 8th of December. So that means there's an additional 4,000 megawatts that has been taken out. This is important. I can't overemphasize the fact that it is important that we are able to do maintenance. The more you postpone maintenance, you are kicking the can down the road. It's going to catch up with you, and you are going to experience rapid failures of these units. So it's as a result of the ramped up planned maintenance. So that's the first one. So essentially the benefits that you have gotten on the reduction in your unplanned capacity loss factor, then they get to be eaten, some of them, by that planned maintenance. And then that reduces your available capacity. And then also, in your available capacity, what is computed there in available capacity, that is the units that are available to give us the megawatts. When they are called to give us those megawatts, they are ready. We are computing in there our open cycle gas turbines, so essentially the degree to which we are burning diesel. And I think we've taken a conscious decision that I think we have been committing those units, so it is important that we are a bit more judicious in how you burn the diesel. You don't want to get to a situation where you are running out of funds. Remember, I did indicate that there's about 30 billion rands or so in relation to the diesel budget. So it's important that you keep within that budget. So essentially, what we have been witnessing is the true health of the system without necessarily the assistance of the open cycle gas turbines. Of course, we do get to engage them during certain peaks, but not at the rate at which we've been doing. So I thought that is important that there's that appreciation, and that has been resulting in that 3-4. Although in terms of the health of the general grid is that there's a positive side. Like I've told you, the rate of failure of this unit is coming down. And then an area that is of attention is the partial load losses. These are not coming as a surprise, if you like, the numbers that we are seeing here because of the ambient condition, and that's not an excuse. I'm simply saying that these ones don't come as a surprise. You do expect that during periods of intense heat you are going to experience this, but that's no excuse. So it's something that has been built into the equation. So I'm simply surfacing the fact that the operating conditions are different between winter and summer, just as for the record. And then the other major improvement that the team has made, and I really want to commend Mr. Ngumalo and the team at Generation, is that we are keeping to our weight now. You can see that the outage slips really, we have experienced a situation where they are at about 677 megawatts. Just for the record, what is the outage slip? The outage slip simply means that we're taking out the units to go and fix it. And I say to the public that we expect to return this unit within 48 hours or 2 days. And as a result of that, we do projections in relation to load shedding, and those projections takes into account our promise that we'll return that unit in 2 days, and then come 2 days' time, the unit doesn't return. That's an outage slip. So we committed to return it within 2 days, but we are not returning it within 2 days, and it means that the promise we have made on the projections of load shedding must be revised upwards. There must be an intensified load shedding because the megawatts we thought will come on stream have not come on stream. And I did make the point that this is a function of planning, and I really want to commend Mr. Ngumalo and the team for the work that they've been doing. You can see that we are bringing it down. If you look at what was the period during May, we use May as a baseline so that there's an appreciation of the trend line. That number was about 3,476 megawatts. So on average in May, 3,400 megawatts, about 3 stages of load shedding, were locked in the fact that we're not able to deliver on our promise to return this unit back on load. And that has got the implications on the intensity of load shedding. We have brought that down, and we have been averaging 1,100 megawatts. So essentially, we are better off by 2,000 megawatts. Those then are made available to the grid, and you are able to reduce the intensity of load shedding. One of the things that gets to be communicated when we make an announcement about the state of the grid, whether we're going down in terms of the intensity of load shedding or we have to revise upwards, is the issues around the reserves, the health of the reserves. And this really talks to our open cycle gas turbines, it talks to our pump storage. So you can see that with regards to Ankerleg, where we ban diesel, really the diesel volumes as at the 8th of December, we're at 85%, Horikwa, we're at 100%, Acacia, we're at 50%, and Port Rex, we're at 47%, and we're able to compute out of that volumes what is the amount of generation hours that we can draw from that. Ankerleg, we can draw 271, Horika 216 hours of generating hours, Acacia 7 hours, and Port Rex 21 hours. And then there's pump storage where you have two dams. The higher dam releases the water, goes through a turbine, generate electricity, and then you must refill it during the night. You use electricity to pump the water back up to the top dam so that you can repeat the cycle. So this is what we call pump storage. We have 3 of them. The pumping hours, generating hours available now at Drakensberg is 91 and 81, and then 42 at Ngula, and 42 generating hours at Palmit. So what is the general statement point I'm making is that there's a good health, if you like, they are in good state, and that's why Eskom was able to announce some degree of reprieve. And we really think that if we are to keep to this, we shouldn't be seeing any significant deterioration. We shouldn't be seeing any intensification of load shedding. We're working really hard, I must say, and this has been the case, to ensure that our experience of all South Africans during the festive season is really a pleasurable one. We're doing everything possible to ensure that we achieve that without necessarily compromising the performance of the grid. Like I always say, I mean, these are mechanical units. There could be some a failure that is not anticipated, resulting in the revision of the projection of the schedules. That's something that is inherent in any engineering unit. So we'll try everything possible to ensure that we avoid that. And if there's anything untoward, of course, we get to communicate. We did indicate that our relationship will be a very transparent, robust one, so that everyone can be able to have sight of the work that we are doing and appreciation of the work that we are doing. So thank you very much, TK.
Thank you very much, Minister Ramokgopa. Before we commence with our question and answer session, I'd like to indicate that the Minister is joined by Bheki Nxumalo, the Head of Generation at Eskom, as well as Ms. Stephanie Mokoena. We will now take questions, starting with members of the media that are in the room. Please introduce yourself and the media house you represent before you put forward your question. Takalani, there's a hand.
Thank you. Antonin Snowett from the Report newspaper. Minister, can you please tell us what the way forward is with Mr. Kgosientso's position? I believe his employment contract comes to an end at the end of this month. Has it been extended, and if so, until when? And then I would just like to understand this court order regarding the police station, schools, and health institutions. From which budgets will that work be done? And you mentioned for lack of a better word, interpretations of the court order. Which one is government supporting at the moment? And then if you could just give us an idea of the performance at the moment of Kgosientsho 1 and 3 and Koeberg Unit 1. And lastly, you said there is 30 billion in the Eskom budget for diesel. If I remember correctly, you earlier in the year said there's a possibility of another 30 billion from National Treasury. Is that still on the table or not? Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. Do we have any more questions in the room? Takalani, can we proceed with the questions that have been shared online?
Thanks, Zakani. We only have 3 for now. One from Kgosientsho from Business Intelligence. And the question is, please advise if the draft IRP was tabled at the special cabinet meeting last week, and if so, was the draft IRP approved by the cabinet, or when is this expected, and what is the current status? And in Erasmus from Business Day, the question is related to the previous question: does the draft IRP that was approved by cabinet yesterday include a revised schedule for the shutdown of end-of-life coal-fired power stations? And Chris Yeland again, please advise the current status of Koeberg Unit 1, and also when is Koeberg Unit 2 shutting down? And we have other from Heart FM. The question is, can you share the time frame to complete the refurbishment of Unit 2 at Koeberg? And Terence Kramer, Engineering News. Does the draft IRP approved by cabinet make changes to the coal decommissioning schedule as outlined in the IRP 2019? And what does this imply for funding that has been secured under the GETP? And was the plan for raising new funding and development models for transmission infrastructure discussed by cabinet? And if so, why was it not approved? Thanks.
Thank you, Takalani. We'll start with Begi, who will be followed by the Minister.
Thank you, Tsakani. Good morning, members of the media and the public. I think, let me deal with the Kgosientsho one. I think since we have returned Kgosientsho 1, 2, 3, they've been running exceptionally well. On average, all of them above 90%. So we are quite pleased with the lessons that we have taken from Ethiopia as well. That Kgosientsho now, the team is really doing quite a great work there. So I'm quite confident that it will continue to support the grid as we move forward with I think the status of Koeberg. I think the minister did indicate that Koeberg 1 is almost on full load now. I think they are doing the last testing, and Koeberg 2 is going to be coming off. The duration, obviously, we are working that we will try and bring the unit as soon as possible, based around August, September next year. But we are working with the supplier there that we try and minimize the impact that happened this year. So Minister, I think those are the points. The rest of the points are for yourself. Yeah, thanks, Minister.
Thank you very much for those questions. Antoinette, on the situation around the acting CEO, I've been very consistent. I think the board chair, Mr. Teto, and also Minister Godan are the ones who will communicate. But I think principally the board will communicate, so I really don't want to overreach. We've delineated our roles, so the board chair on behalf of the board will make that announcement. So I'm not privy to what the situation is, and the only reason why I'm able to share the issues around the CEO, something that I've avoided previously, is because now there's a decision, and that decision is public, and the board made those recommendations, and the Minister Godan, of course, took that to cabinet, and there was that endorsement, concurrence, and that the communication has been made public. And really our interest is there, as the team that is working on the resolution of load shedding is just to welcome the fact that there's stability at the Apex office at the Eskom, and then we are able to ensure that of course some difficult decisions will have to be made if they have to be made, and of course we can sympathize with someone who's in acting capacity. There's some degree of people being averse to making a decision that can be thoroughgoing with the knowledge that there's still someone coming to occupy that space. So we welcome it in that sense. And then in relation to the budget, so Antoinette, you are correct. So this is a function of the interpretation. So there are two interpretations possible. The one interpretation is that by the 31st, there's a plan. This institution will not be load shed, so come the 1st of February, they are exempted. The other interpretation could be that by the 31st you come before the court and say this is how we are going to address this. Like I say, I'm no legal fundi. The legal people will be advising us on what that interpretation is. But what should not be in question is our resolve to ensure that we are able to address the issues of load shedding, ensure that these institution establishments, amongst others, do not experience situation of power cuts. And of course, you have to say you can't just make a statement. You must present something that is compelling and acceptable by all the parties. That, of course, we do agree that you are on a journey to resolve that. And I do want to emphasize that we will never mount a fight on our obligation to provide quality uninterrupted electricity. We've got that constitutional duty. We accept that. We have acceded on that. That is a breach on people's constitutional right. So that much we are agreed there, and it's not something that has been in question. And of course, depending on which interpretation, then you must go on to the budget. We have enough to roll out these alternative power solutions to police stations, to schools, to public health hospitals. It's a conversation that will still happen in government as a function of how we understand the ruling. And of course, I should be able to come back to you and the public to say this is how we see the situation going forward. And then Antoinette, on the diesel budget, no, there is no additional amount of money that we are expecting. So I did make the point that in the NERSA approved tariff, there's about 8 billion ring fence for diesel. In that fiscal support from National Treasury, about 22 billion rand ring fence for diesel put together is 30 billion. So there's no expectation that there's another 30 billion. And the point why there has to be judicious management of that, the envelope, the funding envelope, is to ensure that we don't go beyond that. Otherwise, there's going to be a finding, and that's why there's been that management of how you ban diesel now. So, Antoinette, no, we don't expect any additional money, and we have not made that approach really. And then just to Chris and the colleagues, yes, it was approved for public consultation by a publication. I'm talking about the integrated resource plan. I did make the point that it provides for 2 horizons, and in one of those horizons, it does anticipate that for you to be able to meet the crisis that is confronting us, there's a need for you to rethink the schedule for the decommissioning of this power station. So it articulates how it arrives at that. There's using some plexus modeling, which is a tried and tested and universally accepted modeling on how you model investment in energy demand and all of that. That has been the basis of how the modeling was done. So I invite colleagues to go into that, because it's now out for public discussion, so colleagues can make that contribution. And then in relation to the issues around the transmission area, so we've been asked to come.
Well, the Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, briefing the public, of course, on the latest regarding the country's energy plan, and of course responding to part of what we saw over the past couple of weeks, government's failure to prevent load shedding, breach the constitution and basic human rights. That was of course the court ruling that was made, so he was also responding to that.